If you're a new illustrator, you've probably been asked to work for free. If you're an experienced illustrator, you're probably still asked to work for free. Whether it's an independent cheapskate or a global advertising agency, clients will always see if they can get something from you for nothing. You'll probably feel a lot more pressure to do it at the start of your career because you want the experience. And once you've established yourself in the industry, these requests don't go away. They just get a little bit more polished in their presentation. So today we'll focus on why these requests keep coming, what impact working for free can have on your career and the industry at large, and what you should consider if you are asked to work for free. So why does it happen? Why do clients think they can ask you to do your job for free? There are a few reasons, and the first one is that every company in the world would like to save money, and they might think that they can pay you in exposure. More on that later. The second reason is that they can get away with it. Some illustrators will agree to work for free, especially when they're starting out and building up their portfolio. They're spending hours on end making personal work for free, so when a client asks them to work on a project for free, they might as well. It's the same as what they're doing, but they'll get a bit of real-world experience. I'm actually going to stop referring to these people as clients, because if they're not paying you, they are not clients. The first reason makes sense, because often a new creative needs some experience in order to be able to get their foot in the door with real clients. If they can add this brand name to their website, it lends them some credibility. So these companies or individuals know that if they ask enough illustrators or graphic designers or photographers to do something for free, eventually someone will say yes. In this situation, they do not care about working with you. They only care about getting something for free. You are not a valuable part of the project. Another reason is that some people, and this tends to be individuals rather than companies, don't understand the value of creative work. To them, it's just a pretty picture. They see you trying to make it as an artist, and they may actually think they're doing you a favor by asking you to make something for them. If they don't understand our industry, we can't really blame them for that. Sometimes it's well-intentioned, sometimes it's not, but they just don't get it. And while I do think it is good to try and educate clients on why creative work is valuable, sometimes it goes in one ear and out the other, so it's not always worth the effort. Pick your battles. So some of these people think exposure is a fair trade. Some think they're doing you a favor, and some are straight up trying to take advantage of you. It would be very easy for me to just say, don't work for free, ever. And I see a lot of people saying that online. You know, it's a nice simple tweet to put out and get some likes and engagement, but it's not really that simple. Every person has the right to make up their own mind about whether they should offer their services for free, but they should only make that decision if they've taken the time to inform themselves about the possible consequences and have seriously considered the pros and cons. If every illustrator were to take that responsibility, it wouldn't necessarily mean that all illustrators would say no to working for free, but it would mean they were able to judge each case on its merits and make an informed decision. So I want to encourage you to think things through and consider all the factors before you decide whether or not to work for free. If you work for free for a client once and they say, we may have some paid work for you in the future, well, it's probably not going to happen, because once they know you'll work for free, they'll put you in a category of creatives who aren't valuable enough to pay. Working for free also perpetuates the cycle of companies continuing to ask people to work for free. So your decision does have a very real impact on the creative industry, but that is a heavy burden for one person. If every illustrator was well informed and made educated decisions about working for free, then the industry would be a lot better off. And the fact that you're even watching this video and giving this subject serious thought means you are doing your part. You should be able to make your own decision without carrying around the burden of the whole creative industry. Clients should be willing to pay people for their skills. And don't get me wrong, most of them do, but there's always a minority who won't think that your skills are worth paying for. If an illustrator can see a genuine opportunity to advance their career by offering their services for free and they don't take it, no one's going to thank them for it. If they do go ahead with it after giving it the consideration it deserves and using their best well-informed judgment, I don't see that anybody has a right to challenge them on that. So here are a few things to think about. First of all, if there's a cause you care about and you want to donate your time to, by all means do it. You get to decide how you spend your time. You still need to agree some boundaries so you don't end up doing more than you bargained for. But if you want to volunteer your time for a charity or something like that, that is admirable. Go for it. But other organizations, commercial and corporate organizations, will ask you to work for free too. So let's think it through. If a client is getting value from the work you provide to them, they should be willing to pay you for the value that you provide. If they won't pay, but they're offering something else in return that helps you advance your career or develop your portfolio, you have to decide if what you're getting back is worth the trade. If it isn't monetary, there still needs to be an exchange of value. For example, if a web designer offered to build your website in exchange for a logo design, that might be a fair trade and an opportunity for them to recommend you to others and vice versa. However, if a company with no following to speak of or connections they could recommend you to says there'll be great exposure from this project, ask them to specify how they plan to promote you to other potential paying clients. Most of them can't answer, they're simply trying to take advantage. But if, for example, your name would appear prominently wherever the work is shown, they're going to tag you in their social media post to their 500,000 followers. They're going to write up an article about you on their high traffic website. They're going to organize a meeting where you can pitch your work to their partners or different departments in the company. That is a legitimately good opportunity. Having said that, a company which has these kinds of resources and connections can almost certainly afford to pay you if they choose to do so. When a global corporation says it doesn't have a budget for the work, it's because they are choosing not to allocate funds to creatively develop the project, not because that money doesn't exist. As an aside here, in my book, The Illustrator's Guide, I wrote about TED Talks. None of the TED speakers are paid to do talks, but if an author or expert were asked to do one, they'd be foolish to turn it down. They can provide a valuable presentation to the TED platform and its viewers and audience, and in return, they'll get genuinely great publicity and social proof that they're an expert in their field. Normally, these authors and experts might charge thousands, tens of thousands even, to speak at an event, but they know that what they'll get back from doing a free TED Talk is far more useful than a one-off fee. So that leads me on to exposure. Truth be told, I haven't seen a client mentioning exposure in a long time. I think they've got wise to it being an immediate turn-off for a lot of creatives. Their thinking is, if you do work for them for free, when they show that work publicly, other paying clients will like it so much that they'll find out who you are and then hire you for their project. Yeah, I guess it could go down like that, but I wouldn't bet on it. Some of the professional illustrators I know would happily put some effort into a pitch project if there is a genuinely good opportunity for it to turn into something real, and I would support that. If you want to make a really good impression with a big client, why wouldn't you go the extra mile? And if you think you could really nail a project, but you don't have the right examples in your portfolio to convince the client, why not demonstrate that you can do it by working on a style test? If you can negotiate a small fee for it, great, but if you can't, it might still be worth it. Sometimes you've got to take some risks and put your best foot forward. Maybe it'll work out and maybe it won't, but occasionally it's worth the risk. So instead of simply saying no to unpaid projects, how can we sort out the legitimately good opportunities from the situations where you might be taken advantage of? You've got to ask yourself and the client a few questions. Why aren't they offering you any money? I think this is something you should actually ask the client. Are they paying other people to work on the project? Is the graphic designer being paid? Is the photographer being paid? If they are, why not the illustrator too? I'd be very interested to hear them trying to explain that rationally. Do other similar companies pay people to do this kind of work? Hypothetically speaking, if Sainsbury's, Asda, and Waitrose and Aldi all pay illustrators to work on their packaging labels, how could Tesco justify not paying? Will you have creative freedom? If you're asked to work on a project for free, but you get creative freedom and you can take the lead on the art direction, that might be quite fun for you. Probably doesn't make up for it entirely, but it's a nice bonus. Is the client making money from you being involved in the project? Your illustration work will add value to any project by making the product or service more appealing to the client's customers. If your contribution is going to help that client make more money, they should pay you for the value that you're adding. If illustrated book covers or well-designed book covers didn't help sales, publishers wouldn't bother putting so much effort into them. Are you going to learn anything from the project? Depending on what stage of your career you're at, doing a small inside page illustration for a magazine isn't going to teach you much. But if you are asked early on in your career to work on a big nationwide advertising campaign for cancer research or some big charity like that, that is a very good way to spend your time, even if it is for free. You will learn a hell of a lot from that project. Say that takes a few weeks. If the alternative was doing a couple of newspaper illustrations for 500 quid, which project is actually more valuable to you long term? You get money for one, but you get a hell of a lot more from the other. They should pay you, obviously, but it's still a real opportunity to get your work seen all over the country and for you to learn how to work on a huge advertising campaign. If they don't have money, what else can they offer you instead of payment? It's perfectly acceptable to accept other things in exchange for your work. There's still an exchange of value. Free tickets, free products, free vouchers, a free haircut, whatever. If they can offer you something that you think is worth the exchange, go for it. Why not? Is there an opportunity with this client for paid work in the future? Will it actually lead to anything else? Don't take the client's word for it, because they'll probably say yes, but it doesn't mean it's true. It's going to be very hard to know and even harder to enforce if they say yes and 8 months later you get in touch and you say, but you said you'd hire me and do such and such. You can't rely on promises like that. My best advice for you here would be to ask them to be specific about what they could do to hire you in the future. If they can be specific, that's promising at least. Maybe they've got a quarterly company magazine coming up that needs a cover illustration. But if they can't be specific, it's probably meaningless. If the client offers you exposure or great publicity, they'll say, hey, this is going to be great exposure for you. Well, question that. Will it actually be great exposure? Ask them exactly what exposure they can give you. Are they going to tag you in their social media posts? Are they going to write an article about you on their website? Are they going to recommend and introduce you to their partners or invite you to present your work to other parts of their business? Is your name going to be featured prominently wherever the work is shown? If so, that is legitimately good exposure for you. If not, it's a meaningless statement. If you're not getting credited for your own work, you're not getting any exposure. The company gets credit for your work. And if that client only has 1,000 social media followers and offers you exposure, that's nothing. It's just meaningless. Now, this would never happen, but let's imagine a scenario where you were asked to illustrate the cover of the New Yorker for no money, and you turned it down without giving it a thought. You'd be a fool to say no. That could literally make you famous overnight. That is real exposure to 1 million+ subscribers. But if it's a local magazine with a small readership and they're asking you to work for free, you're not getting anything out of that deal. As Neil Schwab says in his blog, The Business of Illustration, which I'll link to in the description, the clients that can give you really good exposure, that would actually get you some results, do have the money to pay you, so they should. If you choose to work for free after considering all these things, and you still think it's worth doing, do it. You've done your due diligence, you're making a well-reasoned decision about your career. But even if it is free, you still need to set the terms, just like any other project. Tell them what you are and aren't willing to do for free. Maybe you'd usually offer 3 feedback rounds for a client. In this case, maybe you only want to offer 1. And even if you are working for free, the same licensing rules should apply. You still need to have a defined license of how long the client can use your work for and what they can use it for. You definitely don't want to be giving away your copyright for free. If you're smart about it and you think it through properly when you're asked to work for free, that's all anyone can reasonably ask of you. You can make your own decision as to whether what you're getting in return from the client is worth your time and skill. If you really consider all the factors, you can be confident that the decision you're making is the right one, and don't let anybody tell you differently. I hope this got you thinking about the challenges of being asked to work for free. There are a lot of cons, obviously, but sometimes there are some genuine opportunities out there. If you liked this video, you might also like this one, which is about when you should say no to a client and looks at some of the red flags you'll want to look out for with risky clients. See you next time.